Have you ever had that strange moment where something inside you whispers, "This is not random"? Maybe you were thinking about someone you hadn't spoken to in years and your phone rang and it was them. Maybe you were confused about making a difficult decision, and then you saw a sentence on a billboard that somehow spoke directly to your private thought. Maybe you were feeling lost, and then the perfect song played at the exact second you needed it. When this happens 2 or 3 times, you shrug. When it keeps happening, you stop shrugging. You start paying attention. And once you start paying attention, the world changes texture. It stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling strangely coordinated, almost like a silent intelligence is nudging you through the haze, one small breadcrumb at a time. There is something emotionally disorienting about these moments. Part of you wants to dismiss them. Part of you wants to classify everything under coincidence. And yet another part, the quiet, almost private part, feels something deeper. It feels familiar. It feels like home. That part of you knows this pattern is not random. You don't explain it in words. You just know. In this first part of the journey, I want to speak to that inner knowing. I want to talk to the part of you that suspects the universe is not a mechanical machine, not a dead clock, not a cold chain of random reactions, but a living intelligence with an ability to line up outer events with your inner state. Not because you programmed it, not because you forced it, but because there is a field that links inner meaning with outer form. The psychologist Carl Jung tried to describe this idea through a term that eventually became famous: synchronicity. But definitions are dry. You don't believe in synchronicity because a dictionary tells you to. You believe in it because it keeps happening. Your lived experience keeps circling back to it. You see the pattern before you define the concept. And that alone already suggests something unusual. Meaning seems to have its own way of arranging physical reality. We haven't been taught to think like this. Most of us grew up inside a worldview that tells us physical reality comes first. Mind comes second, and anything that looks connected must be a coincidence. We are trained to prioritize logic, and logic is helpful, no doubt. But logic also blinds us to mystery. When we become too rigid, too certain, too obsessed with control, we stop noticing the subtle movements of meaning that flow through our days. We rely only on reason, but reason is only one instrument in the orchestra of awareness. Life is much larger than the conscious mind, and synchronicity is one of the ways life tries to speak to you beyond thought. The question is not, does synchronicity exist? The real question is, are you quiet enough to notice it? Because the universe doesn't shout, it whispers. Synchronicity is not loud. It is precise. It matches inner states with outer events in a way that bypasses logic. It makes you stop and think, how is this possible? And when those events arrive, they don't just carry information, they carry meaning. Meaning is the key, not the event itself, not the data, not the statistics. Meaning. Meaning is the invisible thread between your internal experience and the physical world. Once you understand this, the entire experience of life shifts. You start realizing that reality is not only a physical structure, it is also symbolic. Words are symbolic. Numbers are symbolic. Dreams are symbolic. Chance events are symbolic. Songs at perfect timing are symbolic. Synchronicity is symbolic language delivered through reality itself. It's like life is saying to you, I know what's happening inside you. I see you. And here's a sign to confirm that. For most people, this idea sounds poetic but impractical. Yet if you ask people privately, especially people who have lived long lives, almost every person can recall a moment where something like synchronicity happened to them. The phenomenon is not rare. What's rare is noticing it consciously and understanding how to work with it. We live in a culture that worships efficiency, speed, productivity, and measurable output. We have become so obsessed with visible results that we forget something fundamental. Meaning does not obey linear logic. Meaning does not walk like a soldier in a straight line. Meaning moves like wind. Meaning moves like a flock of birds. Meaning is fluid, subtle, quiet, and symbolic, which is exactly why synchronicity is so disorienting for the rational mind. It bypasses linear logic and speaks to the symbolic mind. It bypasses calculation and speaks to intuition. It bypasses cause and effect and speaks to inner alignment. And when it happens repeatedly, something changes in the nervous system. Something softens. Something opens. Something inside you begins to trust that there is more to this universe than chemicals and random molecules bouncing into each other. So what is actually happening beneath this phenomenon? Let's slow down and explore the emotional territory first, because synchronicity is not an academic concept. It is an emotional experience. In fact, most synchronicities begin as feelings before they become events. You feel a pull. You feel a strange inner nudge. You feel a subtle alignment forming inside your chest, like your inner world is trying to move toward something. Then the external world rearranges itself in a way that mirrors that inner movement. Your brain tries to explain it away. Your heart says, no, that meant something. That emotional conflict between intuition and logic creates one of the most psychologically interesting states a human can experience. Because when synchronicity arrives, you are forced to decide, will you trust your old mental model? Or will you trust the message that is coming through your experience? This moment, the moment you choose which reality frame to stand in, shapes your identity more than you realize. Identity is not built only on habits and memories. Identity is built on how you interpret your experiences. A person who believes the universe is random will naturally interpret synchronicity as coincidence. A person who believes the universe is meaningful will interpret synchronicity as conversation. Which perspective is correct? Ask yourself a deeper question. Which perspective creates a more alive life? Which perspective creates a more connected life? Which perspective creates a more present life? You don't need metaphysics textbooks for this. You only need honesty. Honesty with your own experience. Now, let's look at the psychological side. Research in cognitive science shows that the human brain is wired to look for patterns. Newborn infants do it before they even learn language. Pattern detection is one of the primary functions of the brain. It is so fundamental that some scientists argue pattern recognition might be the core engine of consciousness. So when something random happens, something unexpected, your brain does not ignore it. It scans it. It compares it with internal thoughts, memories, and emotions. If the event matches something you were just thinking or feeling, your brain pauses. It pays attention. That moment, the pause, is where meaning is born. Meaning is the spark that connects an internal thought with an external event. This is why synchronicity always feels like more than coincidence. Not because the event is special by itself, but because it arrives at the exact moment your inner world is already holding a similar meaning. Meaning plus timing equals synchronicity. So the first step in understanding synchronicity is recognizing that meaning and timing are inseparable. If you see a sign with a random word, you don't care. If you see the exact same word at the exact moment you are contemplating something personal, you care. The difference is meaning. This is also why synchronicity cannot be forced. You can't make it happen. You can't order the universe like a waiter at a restaurant. Synchronicity is not a vending machine. It is a mirror. It reflects your inner state back into the outer world. That might sound poetic, but it is also very observable in real life. For example, people who live in high states of inner confusion often see confusing synchronicities. People who live in high states of inner clarity often see clear synchronistic patterns. And people who live in fear often interpret synchronicity as danger, even if the message was neutral. This alone tells us something important. Synchronicity is not only about the event, it is about your interpretation of the event. This is where the emotional growth begins. Synchronicity is not only a sign, it is also a mirror. It shows you what meaning you are projecting into reality. So the first challenge we face is not, how do I get more synchronicity? The real challenge is, how do I become more aware of the meaning I am projecting into the world? Because if your inner world is chaotic, you won't see synchronicity clearly. You will confuse every coincidence with a sign, or you will ignore every sign as coincidence. In both cases, you miss the message. Synchronicity requires presence. Presence requires slowing down. And slowing down requires letting go of mental chaos. This is why synchronicity shows up most clearly during 3 specific emotional states. 1. Periods of intense transition. 2. Moments of honest reflection. 3. Moments of surrender. When you're transitioning, changing careers, relationships, cities, your inner world is open. You are more receptive. You are not trapped in routine. Synchronicity appears like a guide during these periods because your inner world is awake. When you are in honest reflection, meaning you are thinking deeply about your life direction, synchronicity appears because your awareness is tuned toward meaning. And when you surrender, when you stop forcing outcomes and soften into life, synchronicity floods in like a breeze because your mind is not blocking the signals anymore. Many spiritual traditions across cultures have spoken about this indirectly. They say that when you stop fighting life, life begins to reveal itself. When you stop trying to control every outcome, the path opens on its own. When you stop gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, the road becomes visible again. Synchronicity is one of the ways the road becomes visible. So if you want to invite more synchronicity into your field, the first practical movement is internal, not external. You don't need to search for signs. You only need to quiet the noise inside you so you can actually notice what is already there. Right now, think about today. How many moments today felt significant, but your mind dismissed them? How many times did you feel a subtle nudge that you ignored? How many times did something strange happen and you moved on without pausing? Synchronicity is not rare. Our attention is scattered. The more scattered the mind, the more hidden the signs. The more present the mind, the more visible the signs. This is the paradox. Synchronicity is always happening, but only a quiet mind can see it. So part 1 ends with a very practical invitation. For the next 24 hours, don't try to interpret anything. Don't try to assign meaning. Simply do this one thing. Pause when something strange happens. Not analyze. Not overthink. Just pause. That pause is the doorway. That doorway is awareness. And awareness is the ground in which synchronicity becomes visible. The universe might already be speaking to you. You might not need to search. You might only need to slow down enough to hear. So tonight, as you end your day, ask yourself gently, what if meaning is already everywhere and I just stopped noticing? Let that question sit in your chest, not in your mind. The science and spirit behind the serendipity. Let's continue. Yesterday, if you even paid a little more attention to your day, you may have noticed small things you normally ignore. A sentence on a shopboard that matched something you were thinking. A random reel that matched your mood. A memory that returned without reason. Or maybe nothing obvious happened and yet you felt more awake, more alert, more attuned to invisible texture. This simple increase in attention is the beginning, because synchronicity is not something far away. It is already happening around you all the time. Most people miss it because their minds are loud, not because the signals are weak. So in part 2, let's step into something deeper, not only the emotional experience, but the mystery that connects inner meaning to outer events. because this is where the mind tries to resist. The mind wants logic. The mind wants formulas. The mind wants to place everything into the category called cause and effect. If there is no obvious cause, the mind feels threatened. But let's be honest about one thing. Not everything meaningful in life can be traced to a single physical cause. Love has no cause in physics. A poem has no cause in chemistry. Music has no cause in algebra. Some of the most important experiences in life are not mechanical. They are experiential. They are lived. They are felt. They are symbolic. Synchronicity belongs to that category. And yet, we are not going to escape into fantasies. We are going to meet this mystery with open curiosity and quiet clarity, not with superstition, not with blind belief. We are going to walk into the space where psychology meets meaning, where human pattern recognition meets symbolic presence, where ancient intuitive knowing meets modern cognitive science. This is where the bridge between inner and outer reality begins to take a recognizable shape. Now, before we go further, consider something simple about the human brain. Your mind does not live inside your skull. It lives in meaning. Your brain receives signals through senses, sound, sight, touch, and converts those signals into meaning. Meaning is the actual place where your life is lived. You don't fall in love with shapes and colors. You fall in love with meaning. You are not hurt by sound waves. You are hurt by meaning. You don't grow through events. You grow through the meaning of events. Meaning is the invisible architecture of your identity. And synchronicity deals directly with meaning. In neuroscience research, there is a term many psychologists discuss called prediction modeling. It means the brain constantly guesses what might happen next. The brain tries to predict the world. This is interesting because it tells us one important fact. Your brain is not passively observing reality. It is actively shaping how you see reality. So when you are thinking about someone, your brain activates a thought field around that person. If an event related to them happens in the external world at the same time, the mind jumps. Something aligns. Something matches. And that alignment creates a spark, a kind of electric sensation. This spark wakes you up. You suddenly step out of mechanical life and step into noticing. This is why synchronicity feels powerful, not because the event is big, but because the match is precise. The precision is what feels strange. The precision is what feels symbolic. The precision is what makes you say, there is no way this is random. Now, let's zoom further out. There are two philosophical interpretations that often appear in discussions about synchronicity. One, the world is random, and your brain is finding illusions of meaning. Two, the world is meaningful, and your brain is becoming sensitive to hidden patterns. Which interpretation is correct? Here is where life becomes poetic again. You choose the interpretation, but the interpretation shapes what you see. If you assume randomness, you will ignore. If you assume meaning, you will notice. And whichever one you choose becomes true in your experience. Not because the universe changes, but because perception shapes perception. Some quantum physicists have pointed to a strange fact. The observer influences the observed. Even though quantum physics is often misused in spiritual conversations, one thing is clear: measurement changes outcome. Attention itself is a force. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is experimental. Attention affects outcome. So let's combine this with the psychological fact that the brain constantly predicts. What does that mean? It means that attention plus prediction equals sensitivity to meaningful patterns. If your inner world enters a symbolic mode, meaning, if you start looking for deeper threads in your life, you begin seeing connections that were always there, but previously drowned out by noise. So, in a simple sense, synchronicity becomes more visible when your mind is silent enough to receive meaning. But there is something even more subtle going on beneath this. Because synchronicity is not only psychological, it is also relational. There is a strange intelligence in the timing itself. Why does the message arrive at that exact moment? Why not one day before? Why not one day after? Timing is part of the language. Life does not speak English. Life speaks timing. Timing is the alphabet of synchronicity. This is why so many ancient traditions, from Taoism to Sufi, teaching to Vedantic writing, speak about rhythm. They talk about the right moment. They talk about harmony. They talk about alignment. They talk about flow. They talk about opening and closing cycles. This is not random mythology. This is pattern observation. Before modern clocks, timing was felt in nature. Sunrise, moon phases, seasons, tides, rhythm was everything. So synchronicity is not just a strange psychological accident. It might be the way life communicates with a mind that is ready to listen. It might be the way intelligence within reality aligns inner meaning with outer timing. This concept challenges the Western idea that time is mechanical, because synchronicity suggests that time is meaningful, not just chronological. Time is not just seconds passing. Time is living meaning, passing through the moment you are in. You have felt this before. Sometimes 1 minute feels like a lifetime. Sometimes 1 year passes like a blink. Time is psychological. Time is elastic. Time is subjective. So if time is not a fixed mechanical block, then synchronicity becomes even more mysterious. Because if time is a field of meaning rather than a chain of seconds, then synchronicity becomes a meaningful ripple inside that field. Think of a flock of birds. From the outside, it looks random movement. But inside the flock, each bird is responding to multiple subtle signals, adjusting micro-movements instantly. Synchronicity might be more like that, the world moving in micro-adjustments in response to inner patterns of meaning. Which means synchronicity is not magic. It is pattern matching on a deeper layer of reality. But here is a caution. This doesn't mean every coincidence is a cosmic message. Sometimes a coincidence is just noise. Sometimes your mind is tired. Sometimes you are forcing meaning because you want clarity quickly. The difference between noise and synchronicity is emotional clarity. Synchronicity feels clean. Noise feels anxious. Synchronicity carries calm precision like a click inside your chest. Noise carries agitation like desperation for certainty. So how do we cultivate the ability to distinguish? By practicing meaning awareness. Meaning awareness is the opposite of forcing interpretation. It is not hunting for signs. It is noticing when something naturally aligns. The moment you try to make synchronicity happen, it disappears. Because synchronicity is received, not controlled. So here is a practice for the next 24 hours. When something odd happens, pause and gently ask, what were the emotions I was holding right before this moment? Not what does this mean? Not why did this happen? Not what sign is this? Just what emotion was I holding? Because synchronicity is not about prediction of the future. It is about reflection of the present. If you were feeling fear and a strange negative coincidence showed up, that is not a message from the universe, that is a mirror of your inner state. If you were feeling calm and open and something beautifully aligned happened, that is also a mirror. Synchronicity mirrors your inner field, which means the real skill is not decoding the event, the real skill is reading your inner emotion in the moment of the event. This is where synchronicity becomes therapeutic, because it forces you to become honest with yourself. Synchronicity reveals emotional truth in real time. This is why highly intuitive people are not simply gifted, they are emotionally honest. They don't lie to themselves about how they feel. And because they are emotionally honest, synchronicity becomes clear to them. So in the end, the wisdom of synchronicity is not only about mystical events. It is about knowing yourself. And the more clearly you know yourself, the more clearly you read the world. So right now, take a breath. Let these words settle in your mind, but more importantly, in your chest. For the next day, pause not just for the outer event, but for the inner emotion. Because when you start noticing your emotional state at the exact moment synchronicity appears, you begin learning the subtle language of your inner world, and you begin seeing how it shapes outer events. This simple shift changes your relationship with life. It softens your fear. It deepens your trust. It stabilizes your inner compass. Because the universe stops feeling silent. It starts feeling conversational. So here is the reflective question for tonight. What was I feeling the last time life surprised me? Let that question echo inside you gently, and tomorrow, in part 3, we will explore how to begin using synchronicity, not just as a curiosity, but as quiet guidance for the choices you make. Part 3, Navigating Life with Synchronicity as Your Compass. Now we arrive at the most intimate part of this journey. We have talked about noticing synchronicity. We have talked about the deeper psychological and symbolic layers. We have talked about how meaning, timing, and inner emotion form a quiet bridge between the unseen world inside you and the physical events happening around you. Now the question becomes, how do you begin living WITH synchronicity, not as a concept, but as a compass? Because noticing synchronicity is only the first doorway. Interpreting it with honesty is the second. But learning how synchronicity can gently guide your life, that is where everything becomes practical, grounded, and deeply transformative. This is where synchronicity stops being a fascinating phenomenon and becomes a supportive orientation toward life. And here is the surprising truth. You don't need to do anything forceful to live like this. You simply relate differently to timing, choice, and silence. Let's start here. Most people make choices from fear, urgency, or mental pressure. They try to force decisions because they feel unsafe without certainty. But synchronicity introduces a different approach. When you learn to listen to meaning, you stop forcing. You stop rushing. You become available to guidance that is already circulating around you. Synchronicity is not a replacement for logic. It is a companion to logic. Logic offers clarity. Synchronicity offers timing. Logic says, this makes sense. Synchronicity says, this feels like now. That now is often the missing piece. Think about how many mistakes in your life came from acting too soon. Think about how many opportunities slipped through because you waited too long. What if the thing you call bad timing was simply a lack of attunement to deeper signals that were already trying to coordinate your choices? Synchronicity is like weather. If you ignore it, you get wet. If you respect it, you move gracefully. So living WITH synchronicity begins with this shift. Instead of forcing clarity, allow signs to confirm clarity. You think through a decision logically. You feel through the emotional truth of it. And then you wait for life to echo it back. That echo might come as a number repeating. That echo might come as a conversation that mirrors your thought. That echo might come as a phrase on a wall that matches your question. That echo might come as a random message appearing at the exact second your heart asks for reassurance. You don't force the echo. You wait for it quietly. And if it arrives, you move. This is the most gentle decision-making method, and yet it is also profoundly accurate. When synchronicity confirms your inner direction, your inner state becomes calm. There is no panic. There is no compulsive urgency. There is a simple sense of rightness. You can't fake that sensation. You know it when it comes. Now, another aspect of this is equally important. Synchronicity is not entertainment. If you treat synchronicity as a game, the signals blur. If you treat synchronicity as a shortcut to avoid responsibility, your mind will begin hallucinating meaning everywhere. Synchronicity works best when you are emotionally grounded. It does not replace action, it refines action. It does not replace thought, it calibrates thought. It does not replace will, it softens will into wise timing. So, synchronicity equals inner clarity plus outer timing. When those two meet, movement becomes simple. This is the beginning of living with synchronicity. Now let's talk about something more subtle. Sometimes synchronicity guides you through discomfort. People assume synchronicity always feels pleasant, but sometimes the guidance appears inside challenge. For example, a door closes abruptly. A plan collapses unexpectedly. A relationship ends when you didn't expect it. An opportunity that looked perfect falls apart. Most people immediately interpret these events as negative. But sometimes synchronicity is not giving you what you want. It is protecting you from what you cannot yet see. Blocked paths are often synchronistic moments as well. Sometimes the universe does not speak by giving. Sometimes it speaks by removing. This is where trust becomes difficult, because humans tend to trust synchronicity only when it is beautiful. But synchronicity also appears inside friction. Only later, when time passes, you recognize that rejection was direction. That detour was alignment. That ending was protection. This is why patience matters. If you rush to interpret synchronicity in the moment, you often misread it. Meaning sometimes ripens slowly. Sometimes the message becomes clear only after a few days. Sometimes weeks. Sometimes years. So the mature way of living with synchronicity is not to obsessively decode everything instantly, but to remain open, receptive, and observant. You could say it this way: interpret softly, observe deeply, move gently. Synchronicity is a path to wise movement, not compulsive reaction. And then comes the most beautiful part. When you begin to live in this attuned way, synchronicity increases dramatically. Not because the universe suddenly changes. It increases because you become more available to meaning. You stop drowning signals in overthinking. You stop ignoring subtle guidance. You stop rushing into action. You stop forcing outcomes too early. Synchronicity flows most clearly through a silent mind. So here is a simple framework for using synchronicity to guide your choices. Step 1. Feel your emotional state honestly. Step 2. Think through your options calmly. Step 3. Wait for one small external echo. Step 4. When the echo arrives, move. That echo is not a mystical prophecy. It is alignment. This method protects you from impulsive decisions. This method protects you from doubt-based paralysis. This method protects you from self-deception. Synchronicity does not impose meaning. Synchronicity reflects meaning. So if your inner meaning is honest, synchronicity becomes accurate. Now, one more very practical thing. Synchronicity grows in proportion to stillness. Meditation helps. Slow walking helps. Breathing helps. Solitude helps. Because synchronicity requires inner quiet. You cannot hear a whisper in a storm. The modern world is a storm, endless attention-grabbing noise. So one of the most radical acts you can do is to create small pockets of silence in your day, even 2 minutes, even 60 seconds. Silence is the soil where synchronicity becomes visible. Try this in the next 24 hours. Sit somewhere alone for 1 minute. No phone, no scrolling, no distractions. During that minute, simply rest in your body. Then go back into your day. You will notice that synchronicity becomes stronger only a few hours after moments of silence. Because silence resets the inner field. When you bring silence into your life, you are telling the universe, "I'm ready to notice." And the universe responds. Now, let's conclude this trilogy with something simple and deeply human. Synchronicity, at its core, is not about magic. It is not about predicting the future. It is not about controlling outcomes. Synchronicity is about relationship. A relationship between your inner meaning and the world around you. A gentle, subtle, symbolic relationship. A relationship that requires patience, humility, honesty, self-awareness, and quiet sensitivity. And the more you treat life as meaningful, the more life reveals meaning. Life becomes less like a random battlefield and more like a quiet conversation. You begin to feel accompanied. You begin to feel supported. You begin to feel guided, not because certainty increases, but because trust deepens. You begin to see that reality is not silent. It is speaking to you constantly. The signs are all around you. The echoes are everywhere. You simply needed to hear them. So we end here with one question you can carry into tomorrow. What small synchronicity is waiting for me right now that I have been too busy to see? Sit with that question, nodding your mind in your chest. And tomorrow, when the world reveals something subtle and strangely timed, pause and quietly acknowledge it. Because that moment might just be life whispering back,